Welcome, everyone. My name's Mark Cullen, the co-founder and head coach at the LP Endurance Club, a club based out of Kitchener-Waterloo, but we got athletes all over Canada and tons running what is the preview for today, the Around the Bay 30K road race, one of my favorite spring races. Always a little interesting on the weather front, but good challenging course and a unique 30K distance, and one of the oldest races, if not the oldest in North America, older than Boston even. So I'm going to give a preview focusing mostly on the 30K race today. So I would say if you're doing the relay or the 5K in this event, probably good to hop on their website, bayrace.com, and check out some of the more finer details on those. I'm going to focus more on the 30K race route today. All right, let's start with some pre-race reminders to make sure you set yourself up for success for the race. You've done all this training. Let's not throw it out the window in the week and days leading up to it. So remember, respecting your taper. You should have been cutting your mileage and a bunch of your intensity going into the race. And that final week is just about staying sharp. I see too many people self-sabotage their race with panic training or trying to do a bunch of race pace stuff the week of. Just a couple of short efforts and lower mileage. Let your body repair from all that hard work it's done, and set yourself up to be well rested to have a good race. Nutrition wise, I like to up the carbs and electrolytes 1 to 2 days out. So instead of guzzling water and flushing your system, make sure if you're drinking water, you're adding some electrolytes to it. I personally like to use the Precision Hydration 1000 tabs. I throw those in my water for kind of the 1 to 2 days before and the morning of. And then definitely upping carbs in the diet. You don't need to go crazy and throw your gut off and do anything crazy with carbs, but just slowly adding more to kind of the overall diet that week. But making sure not to like limit yourself that week to give yourself the fuel you need for the race. And then limiting kind of fats and fiber leading into a race like that. It's definitely a sugar burning, carb burning race. So give your body the stores it needs to perform on that day. Don't forget, you need to pick up your packet on either Friday afternoon or Saturday. They don't allow race day pickup unless you have that special, I think it's ATB Plus package. So make sure you go pick it up or have somebody pick it up. I think you just got to send them like a confirmation email and they can pick it up for you. In terms of race day, personally, I like to have breakfast about 2 to 3 hours before. Usually I'm having like a big bowl of oats with like honey, maple syrup, and some banana in there. Good carb heavy, simple meal that I can digest and give myself lots of time to have many washroom breaks before the race. You'll definitely have those pre-race nerves. So the more you can get this in early, the more you have a chance to hit the washroom a couple times before the race. And then also that same morning, I'm already topped up on fluids and electrolytes from the days before, but still that morning, I'm usually having a bottle. I typically use Precision Hydration fuel mix. So I'll add a bit of fuel in there that also has electrolytes in it as well. But getting through a couple bottles of fluid and electrolytes before the race as well to make sure I'm nice and topped up. This race, always unpredictable weather, so make sure you bring options in terms of attire for different weather. I've seen years where it's super warm and you're in shorts and a singlet, and then years where it's freezing cold and you need the full winter outfit. So be ready for whatever, and definitely take into account the wind factor in this as well, but also the fact that you will be running hard, so don't overdress for this as well. So there's lots of resources online to make sure that you're dressing correctly for the weather. In terms of a warm-up, it's a pretty long race, so you don't want to do a massive warm-up unless you're using it as a big marathon prep workout or something like that. But usually something in the 7 to 15 minute range is good for an event like this. Just nice, easy shuffle, especially those first couple minutes, and then maybe a couple race pace pickups just to get the body moving a little bit so that it's not a shock right when you go into race pace at the start of the race. But also for those who maybe aren't racing at max capacity or trying to get to race pace right away, you could always use those first 2 to 4K of the race kind of as an ease in to allow yourself to be ready for and then get up to race pace at that point. In terms of the race, it's a 9:30 start, so a little bit later than a lot of races. So you do have the option inside the First Ontario Centre. There's tons of seating in there. You can see on the bottom right where that finish line is, but pre-race you can hang out in there, which is great before, and then just pop out in time for your warm-up. I like to for events like this, grab an old sweater or something that I'm not going to be, that I don't want, that I just want to donate, and I'll use that for my warm up, and then just throw it at the side of the corral, and they donate all that clothing after. So a good chance to maybe get rid of an old jacket that you don't use anymore. Make sure you get in the correct corral. I can't say this enough. Like if you're placing yourself right at the front, you better be running something like under 2 hours or like 1:45 in this. So just make sure you get in the right corral. You'll end up with people closer to your ability level, which will be super important for kind of the next part that I talk about in terms of some of the pacing pieces. So within the race, we've done all this carb loading and staying topped up, but it is a sugar burning event. And for an event that long, you will need to keep up with the carbs during it. So my recommendation is usually something in the 35 to 60 grams per hour, but go based off what you've done in your training. Personally, I go for a gel about every 25 minutes during a race like this. And if I'm doing it around something like 2 hours, I'll probably have about 3 to 4 gels in a race like this. Hydration wise, a lot of times it is cooler this time of year. So hydration and electrolytes aren't as huge of a factor as if it was over, say, 15 degrees. But you still want to stay topped up on water at every aid station here, just to make sure that you're not going to end up dehydrated late in a race, especially if you overdressed. Maybe you'll need a little bit more hydration. And then electrolytes, if you topped off well before the race, you should be pretty good to go, but doesn't hurt to maybe if you're bringing a bottle with you, you could always have a salt tab in there, or there's also the salt pills you can take with you and just pop those at aid stations with some of the water there. But you could aim for something like even 500 milligrams an hour. So if you brought like 1,000 with you for a race like this, even if you were racing 2 to 3 hours, you'd probably be okay on a day like this, especially in the cooler temperature, as long as you topped off with a fair amount the days before and the morning of. Pacing is super important for this. So I'm going to go over the actual course route in the next 2 slides after this, but really this first 21K of this race sets you up for the North Shore Hills, which kind of run from about 21 to 27K before you get that final 3K downhill. So if you have a recent race results, there's lots of great online calculators where you could enter, say, like a half marathon result and get kind of what your equivalent like marathon pace would be. Usually aiming for something around marathon pace, or maybe a couple seconds per K quicker on a course like this. Through the first 21K should set you up pretty well to finish strong over that last 9K. But those who go out at half marathon pace, or like right in your half marathon pace through that first 21K, you'll really pay the price on this. I've had a bunch of different scenarios at this race. Ones where I've paced it really well through 21K, get to pass people through the hills and it's super motivating, and then fly through that last 3K. And I've had years where I've gone out too hot through 21K and I've been walking on these hills. So I can't say enough. Leave some gas through that first 21K so you can hit the hills strong and be able to finish strong as well. In terms of that start corral I was talking about, like really try and start in a spot where you'll be running near runners of similar ability level, because that pack running dynamic can really lower the RPE, or like how hard the effort feels. So if you can get in a good pack of runners, especially I'll talk about some of the windy sections on the course, especially if you can tuck in there behind some taller runners, you can take a little bit of the brunt of the wind off and then just keep ticking off Ks, and helps things go by a little quicker and helps you stay nice and even on the pacing as well. And then when we talk about the hills, just making sure you're not sprinting up hills. The best way to run it is strong up the hill. It's going to be a little bit harder effort than if you were on the flats, but you really need to leave some gas to be able to go strong over the top of the hill and use the downhills also to get that speed back, but also to be able to recover. So you really got to relax on that downhill, lean into it, let the body just flow down, and you should be able to grab some recovery on that. On the bottom right, I'll talk about in the next slides here is the notorious Grim Reaper that you'll see with about 2K to go, but that's once you're over the worst of the hills. So that's an exciting spot to be at. And it looks scary, but it's actually a great time to be out there and unique to this race. All right, let's get into the course. When we look at the actual race route here, so it's called Around the Bay for a reason. It's around the whole Hamilton Harbor here. So you see we start down in that bottom left section here, And these first couple K, you'll get kind of some crowd support for the first couple K, but it gets pretty desolate and you go into an industrial area from about 3 to 10K. So it's kind of, a little desolate out there. Yeah, along this section, a lot of times I find with this race, it's usually a north or a northwest or a west wind. So a lot of this section, I'll show you the elevation map on the next one, but a lot of this section, you will usually end up with some sort of like tailwind on it. So it can be a little bit quick, especially because there is a net downhill part on it as well. So don't be alarmed if it's feeling super easy and you're maybe out a couple seconds per K quicker than your regular pace or your goal pace for it. If you're out way too hot, obviously you're going to pay the price. But if you're at a couple seconds per K and it's the effort that you're kind of expecting, feeling pretty easy through that first bit, don't be too alarmed. It's not too bad to have a couple seconds in the bank, especially with kilometer 21 to 27 being a little bit slower on this course. I've found usually having a couple seconds in the bank, I bleed a little bit of time on the hills and then can finish strong. So yeah, this first section, you got the first 10K there. That's a little bit desolate through the industrial area. And then you get on to Beach Boulevard, which is always an interesting section. A lot of usually crosswind, or last year was headwind on this section. So even more important to nail that being in a pack on this section and trying to draft some people. You can see the different aid stations on there that have water and the electrolyte drinks. So maybe take note of those and know that you're going to be doing a little top up at each of those. You can also see the relay exchanges. Like I said, I'm not going to cover too much on that, but all the bus information and stuff like that will be on the website. So you have that long stretch that's about 7-8K long on Beach Boulevard there before you get into North Shore. So the first part of North Shore, first couple K aren't too bad through North Shore there. They're just kind of flat, tiny little bit rolling. And then you start to get into the hills at around 19-20K. And there's a couple decent sections there that I'm going to talk about on the next slide. But really it's 20-21K up till about 26K there, where you can see Valley Inn Road, kind of a near Spring Garden Road there, where the hills are. And then once you get back to York Boulevard, back to First Ontario Center is a fast downhill section. So if we look at the course elevation map, so I grabbed the top one is from my Strava last year. And then the bottom one is the one the race puts out there. So the race one at the bottom doesn't really show. At 5 and 7K, you got a couple overpasses that have some small little climbs on them. Again, just be smooth on those. They go up and then back down. So just don't hammer up those hills and bleed a bunch of extra energy that you'll need on the main hills. So just be smooth on those, get up and over them, stick to pace. You're probably going to have a little net downhill on that first 10K anyways. So just keep that effort in check, and remember you got a lot of work to come. So don't give anything away in that first 10K there. So you can see the scale isn't huge, so it's not like a really noticeable downhill, but just a good one to keep in mind if you're going out a little quick and it's feeling easy, there is some downhills in there. So you got a couple little climbs along the way there. And then as we get into 10 to 20K, that's that section along Beach Boulevard, pretty much pancake flat along there, but can be windy. So really tuck in the pack there. And then you can see as we start to get in the hills there at about 21K. So you got like LaSalle Park, Burlington Golf and Country Club. And then there's also the final climb up to Plains Road as well. So those are kind of your first 3 climbs there. Again, smooth on the uphills, over the top strong, and you really use those downhills to help yourself recover. It's a really beautiful section of the course and pretty covered. So a lot of time the wind isn't too terrible there, but if you get a west wind, it can be tough on those days. And then there's the notorious kind of Valley Inn hill that comes at about 26-27K into the race. You'll have this big bombing downhill into the bottom of it, go over a little bridge, and then it kicks up, and there's kind of like a little bridge you go under during it. It's only about 400 meters long. But again, if you gas yourself over this hill, then you don't get to take advantage of that last kind of 3K that is really fast downhill to the finish. So if you can leave yourself, you got to stay strong on this hill. But really just the main goal is getting over the top strong so that you can take advantage of that last 3K going back down to the First Ontario Center. So that's a little preview of the Around the Bay course. Best of luck in your final weeks of training. And if you see me in person there, I will be there racing. Look for me in the blue LP kits, and looking forward to seeing you all out there. Best of luck.